I'm Tom Jensen, the founder of Entrepreneur Futures, a national nonprofit whose mission is to empower innovators and entrepreneurs with training and mentoring. I'm so excited to share EFN's interview with Dr. Zachary Holman of Arizona State University for EFN's Ask an Expert series. Dr. Holman is an expert in energy innovation and entrepreneurship. He's a nationally known researcher and startup founder in solar technology. He has co-founded 3 solar companies and helped many others. It has been a pleasure to collaborate with Zach on several EFN education and training programs during the last few years. In this session, Dr. Holman shares his perspective and insight on how to be successful in applying for federal research and development funding.
I'm a faculty member at Arizona State University and also the Vice Dean for Research and Innovation. And I've had the opportunity to start 3 companies based on university research, all of which are in the, I say the not dead yet state. It's when you talk about the success of a startup company, it's always such a roller coaster that one feels hesitant to describe anything successful as being successful until you cross certain thresholds. So I like to say, yep, they're all still alive. All of the companies that I've started have received funding from the Department of Energy, EERE, that's Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, that's the division, and the Solar Energy Technologies Office in particular. Kind of 3 different mechanisms for that funding. 2 of the 3 have won money through DOE's prize competitions. One company got $600,000 through that prize competition. The other got, I think, $200,000. So I recommend that you check those out in addition to the SBIR. Unlike the SBIR, they're not a grant, they're a prize, which means that the money goes into a bank account and you can spend it on whatever you want. There's no restrictions, there's no associated scope of work. The second mechanism that we've used to receive support from DOE is through grants that are not the SBIR. Each of the offices will run those. Those are great. They can be considerable amounts of money. So for example, one of the companies, Swiftco, received a $1 million award from DOE. It's also a subcontractor on a several $1 million award, where another company led. A different company is a subcontractor to a university on a $9 million award from DOE. One of the downsides about the ones that are not SBIR awards, they're coming from DOE. They typically require cost share, 20% cost share for a small business that's doing R&D. And that means that you have to have dollars, frequently investment dollars, that aren't associated with some other grant or program that you can invest to match some of DOE's investment. So a little bit of a up and down there. And then the third mechanism is the SBIR and STTR program, which we're talking about today. And it's a fantastic program. I highly recommend it. The phase 1 is not a lot of money, so it's really all about getting to phase 2. But I like that tiered approach because the phase 1 positions you, you become familiar with the funding agency, you understand what it is they want to see, which is not just about successful technology. As a matter of fact, I think if you look at the companies that make it from phase 1 to phase 2, the critical thing is usually about whether or not they have a reasonable commercialization plan, they understand the market, and they've gotten some market traction, right? So they have some uptake with prospective customers. Those are critical things to getting to phase 2. So the companies that I've started have received SBIRs, not only from, and I've also been a subcontractor with my university hat on to other companies that, not my own companies. And so I've participated in SBIRs from DOE, from NSF, and from NASA. And each of those agencies does things a little bit differently. Some have a direct to phase 2 route, some have a phase 3. NSF has something they call a phase 2B. But the general approach is a small phase 1, and then a larger phase 2, which is more like something on $1 million, with an application period in between to transition from that phase 1 to the phase 2. The purpose of the letter of intent is to give the funding agency, DOE in this case, an idea of the onslaught of applications that they're about to receive, because they have to prepare to review those and to review them in a timely fashion. So normally what they're doing with the LOIs is they're understanding, hey, I got 50 applications coming in related to concentrating solar thermal, for example. Okay, and now I need to go find reviewers, enough reviewers for those incoming applications, and I have to make sure the reviewers that don't have conflicts, COIs, conflicts of interest with the incoming applications. So your letter of intent, you're not writing it to necessarily impress DOE or to impress any reviewers. It is really just a short informational submission so they know how to gear up for reviewing. So truth be told, I don't normally spend more than an hour on a letter of intent. It's really about just, hey, I'm coming with an application, and then you want to invest all of your effort in the actual proposal documents that come afterward. You just need to be ready to invest a lot of effort after that in preparing the actual proposal. I think it depends on the agency. So some of the, for example, Department of Defense, I was looking at DoD topics yesterday, and they're very specific. They have certain problems that they're trying to solve. On the other end of the spectrum, you have NSF, which doesn't really have a topics process. They just say, hey, send us all of your best ideas. And DOE lands somewhere in the middle. They're really broad. And if you read the information about those topics, there's details about what examples, they might be interested in, examples of what they might be interested in receiving, but they also leave it pretty open-ended and say like, hey, other things within these general topics are also interesting. So maybe a different way of saying that is I have seen lots of proposals successfully, SBIR proposals successfully funded by DOE that were not specifically described in the language underneath the topics. I think the topics are, offering guidance, but DOE doesn't know all the cool things that you all might be doing, but they want to know about what those things are. So maybe think of it as, out of the topics that are available, which expertise would I like my reviewers to have? If maybe you're working on a project that seems like it's at the intersection of two topics. So just remember that basically what you're doing in submitting this LOI and choosing a topic is you're helping DOE understand who should be reviewing your proposal. So that's how I would think about it. The way that I like to build any proposal, and definitely for the SBIRs, is ask, first of all, where do we want to be at the end? And in the case of SBIRs, I would ask, where do we want our company and technology and product to be at the end of the phase 2? So maybe 2 years from now, having spent $1 or $1.5 million, where can we get to? And I would define that as quantitatively as possible. Try to write down in numbers, what does technology success look like at the end of, say, 2 years of work? I like to work backwards, building a basic Gantt chart of, okay, if I'm trying to get to a 26% efficient perovskite silicon tandem solar cell on an M10 wafer, and not one of them, but I want that to be the average efficiency of a batch of, 3 batches of 10 of them run on 3 separate days. That's where I want to be 2 years from now. Where do I need to be 6 months, 9 months, 12 months from now in order to achieve that? And building out that list of milestones, I then like to assign tasks. Okay, what do the workflows have to look like in order to achieve those? Once I've got that basic Gantt chart, then I start asking the question, does my team, our company, have all of the ability to achieve those things? And with small businesses, the answer is frequently no, right? You're a small team that has expertise in a certain area. And to the extent that you can focus your efforts on where you create value as a startup company and subcontract or use vendors for everything else, the more likely you are to succeed. So then I would ask the question, well, who else do I need on the team in order to be able to achieve those things? Maybe it's not people, maybe it's access to facilities. Maybe I've got someone on my team who knows how to use a scanning electron microscope, but we don't have an SEM. But there's one down the street at the university. And I say, okay, I'm going to need that. I'm going to need these people as a supplier because I'm going to be procuring these input materials into my process, et cetera. And then I build a budget around the milestones, the associated tasks, keeping in mind that's going to include sourcing some materials, using some other people's facilities perhaps, and maybe bringing in a subcontractor, which could be a university, could be another company, et cetera. You don't have a whole lot of scope to do that on a phase one because it's $150,000 or $200,000. So it's not like you're going to have 3 subcontractors, but you might have one. After I've done that, kind of going Gantt chart, where do I want to be, budget, then I start thinking about building the proposal and defining what the problem is, making sure that I understand the market and the present technology. Nothing is more of a turnoff as a reviewer in reading one of these when you from the very beginning, you understand this person doesn't know what the present state of the art is. They don't understand what the real problems are. I don't care what their solution is. They don't understand the problem, right? And so to the extent that you can use processes like NSF's I-Core, Innovation Core, Customer Discovery Program, which is based on the Lean Startup methodology of asking questions of people who already have products in the market, who might be potential customers, et cetera, to understand the problem. That will inform, the first page or two of your proposal and really set you above the rest of the submitters just based on your understanding of the problem. And then you can talk about your innovation, your solution, and then you get into and here's how I'm going to perform. Here's what I'm going to do over the next 2 years, all based around your Gantt chart. And then you're just going to elaborate on that. And then you've got this accompanying budget that matches the scope that you've proposed. And to me, that's a solid proposal. So that's kind of my order of operations in building a proposal. It doesn't always start 6 months out. I have written proposals in much less time, but an SBIR has a lot of components to it. Having 2 good months is a good place to be. A proposal is something that you're proposing to do. It's forward-looking. And so a mistake that sometimes people make is they spend the whole proposal talking about what the company has already done, has already achieved, what you can already do. And that's not what it's about, right? You're asking for money to do something new. You have to imagine the future, describe the future. What you've done in the past is of interest to the reviewers in DOE in so much as it enables your vision for the future. Not more than that. And so you think, well, what is an enabler of my vision? We have unique capabilities. That may be equipment, that may be software, that may be know-how of our employees. And we have a history of successfully converting investment into impact. Those are the 2 sorts of things that I want to convey.
Thanks for joining us. Our hope is that you've come away from this Ask an Expert interview with Dr. Zachary Holman of Arizona State with more knowledge and insight about how to compete for federal funding. I encourage you to watch EFN's learning modules on writing R&D grant applications and also budgeting. Both are complementary to this interview. If you have questions or are looking for more resources, please reach out to us.